Hello! Today we are going to talk about developing research questions. You will develop a set of questions to use in your Exploring Space project. So I always like to go back to the basics. What is a question? A question is any sentence worded to gather information. It might be to address something you're curious about, to address some information need. So what's the difference between closed and open-ended questions? And remember, at this point, you've seen a video with these terms. Hopefully they sound familiar. Closed-ended questions can be answered with a one-word response. Example, is Pluto a planet? A yes-no question. Open-ended questions always require more explanation. Example, why isn't Pluto a planet? So what makes a good research question? It really depends. What is the purpose of your question? For closed-ended questions, you can get at quick facts, single words, yes-no responses, short phrases, very clear and specific answers. As one of the videos mentions before, quantitative data often comes from closed-ended questions. While open-ended questions lead to fuller explanations, they often cause you to think and reflect, and they ask for your thoughts and opinions, that qualitative research data. So today we are going to use the question formulation technique, and this is a very specific set of steps that you'll use to form your own research questions. Step 1, we produce our questions. Step 2, you evaluate and improve your questions. Step 3, prioritize your questions. And step 4, determine your next steps. How will you use your questions? Now, we also have these rules for producing questions because at this point we are concerned with quantity over quality. So the rules for producing questions: number 1, ask as many questions as you can. Number 2, do not stop to discuss, judge, or answer any question. Number 3, write down every question exactly as it is stated. And number 4, change any statement into a question. These rules might sound kind of silly as you're working on this activity on your own. The question formulation technique is a procedure that is often used in groups, though it works individually as well. You are going to follow the directions in the Google Doc that was provided to you, including writing your topic as your question focus into the top box of that document. You have 5 minutes to produce as many questions as you can, starting now. Now that you have produced your questions, it is time to work to improve them. And we do this by evaluating our questions. First, you will mark each question as opened or closed-ended. You may find that many of your questions lie in a gray area where they really could be opened or closed depending on how it is asked and the response that you get. Go with what you think is the best fit. After, change two questions, one from open to closed and one from closed to open. Think about how does changing a question affect the information you could gather. Now in step 2, when you change two of your questions, do not erase the original question. Keep the original, add the updated question as another, because as you narrow down your questions later on, you may find that one version is better for the information you are trying to gather. Remember, closed-ended questions can be answered with a one-word response. Open-ended questions require more explanation. Take some time to complete these 2 steps. Now that you have evaluated your questions and worked to improve them, you are going to prioritize your questions. Remember, prioritizing your questions means you are choosing the questions that are most important to you. And you are going to use particular criteria to prioritize them. So you are going to identify 5 priority questions using the following criteria. You find the question interesting and want to find the answer, and the questions are meaningful, and will help deepen your understanding of the topic. You do not want questions you already know the answers to. You also do not want questions that cover the basic information that your teachers have already asked you to answer. So your question should really be interesting and keep you engaged with your research throughout the rest of this process. At least 2 of your 5 questions must be open-ended and require you to dig deep to find an answer. Be ready to share a priority question and why you chose it with your teacher on the form provided. Now that you have your priority questions identified, it's time for the next steps. Following the steps provided to you in Schoology, you will research answers to your 5 priority questions and the questions provided by your teacher. You will use the sources provided in Schoology, which include websites and database sources. Remember, your teachers and I evaluated these sources and identified these as the strongest ones for you to use. There are absolutely great sources out there on the internet, but you need to be a critical consumer of information online and evaluate the information you use. So we took that job off of your shoulders. You must cite all of the sources that you use using the bibliography format provided. And you will share your learning through a Google Slides presentation.